Good evening. How are we all? Nice to see everyone on this lovely summer's evening here in the UK. Good evening. How are we all? Nice to see everyone on this lovely summer's evening here in the UK. Good evening. How are we all? Nice to see everyone on this lovely summer's evening here in the UK. Good evening. How are we all? Nice to see everyone on this lovely summer's evening here in the UK. Good evening. How are we all?
Have you got your sound
Nice to see everyone on this lovely summer's evening here
Well,
in the
I'm
UK.
not quite sure what's going on. We need to do something with the sound.
How are we all?
Just bear with us.
Everyone on this lovely summer's evening here
Well,
in the
I'm
UK.
not quite sure what's going on. We need to do something with the sound. Just bear with us. Well, I'm not quite sure what's going on. We need to do something with the sound. Just bear with us. How strange. Well, it's a strange old start. I'm not sure what that strange echo is. But hopefully that has gone away now. Do you want to put your headphones in, Dave, see if it's working? Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I can see there's a number of new faces here today. Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I can see there's a number of... I'm hoping that everyone can hear me all right. I've cancelled all of my speakers to try and make sure we've got no echo. So Daisy's giving me the thumbs up, so that means it's working okay. So hello, yes, we're going to do a first impressions of this. It landed on my doorstep today. It's the Airfix 1:35 scale World War II British Army 30 CWT. Is that the maximum load weight or something? Don't know. 4x2 general service truck. And here it says, if I can bring this up to the camera, special features include photo-etch parts and internal detail, which means we might get an engine in this one, which should be good. So sat next to me is my lovely eldest daughter, Daisy. She's going to be watching the chat and she's going to be politely raising her hand if there's any questions. No one in particular that comments to, James. Anyway, the whole idea is I can concentrate on this and Daisy will interrupt if needs be. And if there's any particular questions, I'll try and answer them. I will pause occasionally and see if there's anything in the chat that I need to respond to. And otherwise, we're going to just crack on with this. I will also record a proper first impressions and take some close-up photographs of the parts after this. But I thought lots of people might be interested to see what this looks like. And as I've just got it, we will. Now, I've noticed that there is a comment already about the Gecko one. Yes, Gecko, again, has managed to beat Airfix to it. And they do have a kit of this out. I don't know how good it is. I've not looked at it. There was one or two errors in the previous Gecko kit with the ambulance when we were comparing the two. So I don't know. We're just going to focus on the Airfix one today. Right. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining. It's really nice to see you all. I'm going to get underway. And Daisy, you keep your eye out for any questions. Daisy, do you want to say hello to everyone first?
Hello.
That'll be Daisy then. Right. So new style Airfix box that is now becoming quite common, where we've lost the red strip, which used to show you the different paint schemes. And I think, to be honest, the box looks better for it. It's a nice bit of artwork. We've got a bit of drama going on in the background with burning vehicles, what looks like a burning Opel Blitz in the background there. And then we've got the general service truck at the front, showing off one of the two paint schemes that you get in the kit. The kit number is A1380, and it tells us
that it's 1:35 scale. And like we've already noticed, there's photo etch in there and internal parts. So hopefully we've got a nice complete model. As usual, the ends just copy what's on the top cover there. And then we've got our caution information. And then if we turn it upside down and look at this end, we've got a little bit of history. It says, as Britain prepared for war in the late 1930s, the military was not just desperately in need of vast numbers of aircraft, tanks and guns. They also needed many thousands of trucks, and then so it goes on. 2 paint schemes. We've got 419th Company, Royal Army Service Corps, Divisional Supply Company, 70th Infantry Division, Tobruk, Western Desert, August 1941, and that's the one that's on the front cover. And then there's a darker green and dark green camouflage version, which it says Evaluation Unit Russia 1944, which is an interesting one. Then you've got the usual Humbrol paints being called out, lists them for both schemes. There's clearly no figures. It's quite a small number of paints being called out. It's a Skittle level 3, and you get 3 flying hours. And it's the same price as the K2 ambulance. So I think it's that 30, 33, 34 pounds, something like that. So you can buy it on the Airfix website now, and it will be hitting shops about now as well. And I had this on pre-order from when they released the catalogue in January, and it literally arrived at lunchtime today. So let's have a look in the box once I've had some tea. Anything on the chat, Daisy? Is the sound okay? Okay. Right. So box lid off, and we can have a look in. And well, the first thing I'm noticing is that there ain't much in the box. Look at how deep the box is compared to that. Then there's quite a bit of space in there, so that concerns me a little bit, but the box is nice and rigid, so shouldn't be too much of a problem. We've got one bag with the sprue in, and then there's the clear bag and sprue inside that. Then we've got a second bag with a single sprue in, and that is it for the plastic part. So the part count is quite light for a skill level 3. Then we've got our photo etch and our decals, and then our instruction book. So what we'll do is the usual routine. I will go through the instructions first. Okay, so instructions. So we've got a nice semi-gloss, actually. They seem to have changed the quality of the paper, feels a little bit different to usual. Stapled A4 portrait build manual, looks very familiar, obviously. We've got just a handful of languages there for this kit. And again, it's just an emulation of the history. And then at the bottom, the thing about washing your parts, which we all know. And then as we turn over, just making sure we keep that in shot. We've got some assembly instruction notes, and then we've got the assembly icon instructions. I don't see anything that is particularly new there. So if you're familiar with Airfix kits, these will all be familiar to you. Now, this kit is made by Academy, and I did a little bit of digging around, and as far as I can see, Academy have never released it. So it is a genuine new tool, and how it works is Airfix do the research, send all the research information to Academy. Academy design the kit, produce the kit, box the kit even, all exclusively for Airfix, and then it gets sold under the Airfix banner. So it is a genuine new tool for the Airfix range. It's not a rebox or somebody else's, but it is manufactured by Academy. So
we should see some familiar quality and layout. And we're starting here with a sprue map. The sprue map does have the numbers on, and even with just my reading glasses on, I can see those numbers. So that is pretty cool. You can use that as cross-reference if you like. And it's showing us that we have the two sprues, the clear parts, the photo-etch, and then a separate bonnet piece, which I didn't notice. So I'm hoping is in one of the bags. That would be a bit rubbish, wouldn't it? Okay. Then as we turn over the page, we get to step 1. And as I guess we'd all expect, it starts with the chassis. And it's also saying all parts painted 74 or 29, depending on your paint scheme, A or B. So it looks like 2 chassis side pieces, and then we've got the cross members of various different types going through, and then there's a front extension there, and then we're putting in the tow hook into the back one and shoving all that together. I'm just interested in that shape, how easy it'll be to keep everything flat and square. So when we look at the parts, we'll have a look at that. Daisy, is there any questions?
Not any questions, no.
No, okay. And to boldly go is behaving himself. Yeah, okay. He's usually asking you to kick me, that's all. Right. Yeah, I bet. Right. Step 2, I can see the bottom of the engine going in, so that's good. It means we've got an engine, hooray. We've got the leaf spring suspension going in at the back, so nice clear instructions, well laid out, easy to see the parts. It's not cramped. And again, the paint instructions are as before, depending on your paint scheme. So even that's quite laid out and clear. So easy for relatively novice modeler to get their head around what's going on. Step 3 gets a little busier. We've got the front leaf suspension going in, the drive shaft, and the rear axle there. There's some separate caps that go on top of the springs, so that'll give us some nice detail with the bolt heads and stuff. They've not all been molded into one piece. And then 4, we've got the exhaust going in and the little cross member for the wheels that's slung under the suspension there. There's a little note: assemble in numerical order starting with 1. So, okay, so 1, 2. So put the exhaust on before you put that piece on, basically. So let's just flip over. Step 5. And we're building up the wheels. So the front wheel hubs are molded into the tire. We've got 2-part plastic tires, and then we've got a rear hub that's going in separately. So I suspect that means that the wheels will probably spin. But yeah, the hub is all molded in. Just a bit of careful painting. That's not a problem at all. And if you get resin wheels, they've always got the hubs in, so I don't have a problem with that. Then we've got, we're putting the wheels on. I've got to say, I'm not sure that I'd be putting the wheels on at step 5. I probably want to leave them off because you know what it's like when you're building the rest of it. You put some pressure on, and this part here that the wheel's on, it snaps off, and then you're in a world of hurt. Every time you put it on, it comes off. So for me, I'd leave the wheels off until right near the back end of the build, to be honest. Step 6, we've got the single piece front mud guards, and I'm not sure if that actually includes the bumper or it's just what goes behind the bumper, but it does look like the bumper to me. Then we've got the two fuel tanks going on. They're made up of 4 separate parts, so that should be nicely detailed, including a separate fuel neck. And it actually shows you building, I mean, they're exactly the same, but it shows you them being built up separately. And it's not quite the same part numbers. Make sure you get the right orientation, I guess. Step 7, we've got these being mounted on. So yeah, right, okay. vehicle's upside down, so that's the steps so you can get into the cab. And we're putting the end pieces on the end of the chassis there, which takes us to step 8, and we're building the wooden truck, and that's absolutely crying out for all sorts of things to go in there, oil drums and what have you. So time to raid your stash of spare parts and find some bits and pieces to go in the back, and a tarpaulin draped over it, and then there you go, you've got your truck looking a little bit more interesting. Now this is interesting. These pieces here are the bottom of the bars that for the soft top when you put the soft top on. Now I think on the Gecko version that you get those individually and you can actually put the hoops on, whereas clearly you're not going to be able to do that with the Airfix one. Yeah, which we can see there. Step 9, we're putting the ends on. It's not offering us an option for it to be open or closed, so we'd have to have a look at that, but it does look like you're going to have it closed up. It's got a little notch in there to line it up, so yeah, it's disappointing if you can't have it drop down. I'll be honest, you'd really want the option. It's always good to try and get a bit of animation in if you can. Step 10, we're putting in the stowage boxes and bits and pieces that go underneath. We've got 4 of them. Again, they're breaking down the sub-assemblies nice and clearly. You may want to build all of these right at the start so you can just paint them and fit them as you go along. But yeah, that all looks good. So hopefully all nicely detailed as well. Step 11, and that's those hoops going on, and you can see the extensions there being stowed along the side. So it's nice, but again, it would be nice to have the option. You know, they could do this, and then they could do the separate hoops. Now, I'm guessing if you want to fit the hoops, you could probably get some wire or brass wire or something and build them yourself and scratch build them. Shouldn't be a problem, but we'll have a look at that when we look at the plastic. And then we've got this fitting at the back, which is for the spare wheel. And we can see that spare wheel is 2 parts. So yeah, that's all nice. And then we're fitting the whole of the back end on. It's telling you it's the step 11 part, and it's going to sit down there, and I'm not quite sure what that piece is. Probably the base for the spare wheel, I'm guessing. Okay. Flipping over. And we're starting at step 13 to build up the cab. So we've got molded in 1 seats, which mount onto a base, which then go into the floor pan of the cab. We've got separate pedals, handbrake and gear shift, all separate, as we'd expect. And then in step 14, we are building up the steering wheel. We've got the cab windows going in. Looks like the windscreen wipers are molded into the clear plastic, which could be interesting. Daisy, is there a question? I've seen a lot of builders who look and just having a look at this one. Let's question. Let me just have a look at that. I've seen a lot of builders who leave attaching wheels to the very end. Why do they make it? Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question, Craig, to be honest. Not quite sure why they do that, because most people, I guess, leave it till the end like I do. But yeah, there you go. I always start by my builds by going through the instructions a couple of times and resequencing things if I need to. So yeah, I agree totally. Right, without further ado, let's just crack on. So we're at the cab. Like I say, windscreen wipers molded in. So again, that limits your options a little bit. If you want to pose them in a different position, you're a bit stuffed, and it won't be easy to remove them from the clear parts. We've got looks like this piece here, which I would call the engine firewall, has got the dashboard molded in on the inside. And we can see here, we've got a couple of decals for the dials. So some detailed painting of switches. It's telling us to paint everything 33. So that's matte black. I'm not sure that that's correct. A little bit of research is needed to make sure that the dash is looking as it should do. I'm sure there's different shades of colors on those switches and what have you. It won't all be uniformly jet black as they're suggesting. Then we've got another sub-assembly, which is an option. So we can have either a clear window looking out of the back of the cab, or a shutter, a little sliding hatch. It doesn't reference either of the paint schemes, so it's not one is related to the other, so it's just a builder's option. Gotta say, I quite like the idea of the hatch door just because it's a little bit different and makes it a bit quirky, and I like quirky. But then we're bringing this together with the two shallow side pieces, which means that we've got separate doors and we can pose the doors. So that's a positive, definitely. There's a little decal there going in, which has got the manufacturer's engine information on and so on. So that's a nice touch. Hold up, we've got another question.
Yeah, that's a question. Yeah.
Okay. Because she relies on her dad for lifts is the answer to the question, to boldly go. Okay, carrying on. Right, doors. We've got, it looks like the doors are molded one piece. So the internal fittings of the doors are already molded in. So I'll be interested to see how crisp those are. That worries me a little bit that we've not got separate door fittings. But we do have separate glass and they're fitting that in now. They're not showing an option of having the doors open, but as they're separate, even with a little bit of tweaking, you will be able to get those doors to sit open, I have no doubt. And then we've got a separate roof going on, which actually just finishes off the top of the windscreen wipers. So that'll all come together. And maybe looking at how it's fitted, we've got a rim at the front and a rim at the back. It may be that you could, if it fits well enough, you could leave that loose so you can just pop it off and have a look inside it if you want from time to time. No figures being put in here, so I didn't see any figures when we took the plastic parts out. I don't think there is any. Then the cab is going on to the chassis. We must be near the end of the build, really. Step 18, mud guards, and it's just a shame that they're not photo etch, particularly the mud flaps at the back there. But they're not the plastic, so I'd be interested to see how refined the thinness of that plastic is. Step 19, and again, it's prompting us to build things in number order to make sure they fit. So we're starting with the radiator, and then we're putting in the grille, and then we're putting on the bonnet. Now, you can't pose the bonnet open, so you're going to have to do a little bit of butchery if you want to show the engine open. They've only included the bottom of the engine. So when they say interior included, they mean the cab, not the engine. I'm not quite sure why they've put the radiator in, because that is a single molded piece. So it's unlikely you can see through that. So that's a little odd, that, isn't it? Why put that radiator in when you've only got the sump bottom that can be seen when you look underneath the model? So there isn't an engine, and again, that probably detracts a little bit because it's limiting your options. If you want to display it broken down, you're going to have to scratch build an engine and do some butchery on the bonnet there. And also you'd have to do some butchery on the molded on clasps there. We've got another question, Days. Which one? So I was just going to show that question. Yeah, that was the issue with the ambulance, wasn't it, Gary? Don't know. we'll have to have a look and know that on the image of the Gecko model, it shows a different type of grill, sort of a wire mesh grill. This is definitely different. Now, if I know Airfix, they'll have got their details right, but it could be that these two general service trucks are slightly different versions. So probably worth a bit of a look into. Step 20, we're adding the wing mirrors, and we've got our little identification plate, which is made up of the two Photo-etch parts. And I think that is the full extension of the Photo-etch, which will look good and nice and in scale with it being etch. Right, okay. I have another question, so just bear with me. Keep the questions coming, by the way. No, I haven't actually started the ambulance build yet, but I've got everything I need for it, and it might be coming up in the options for the 6,000 subscribers video, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes when we've done this. Okay, and then we've been asked, not sure. You might want to buy the Gecko kit and put the engine in, maybe, don't know. You'd have to do some research around what engine it is. I'm not aware of an engine that would go in. I have no doubt that the resin aftermarket guys will look after that soon enough. I'm sure trucks are something they love doing stowage and bits and pieces for. Okay, step 21. And we've got the bull bar at the front going on. We've got the little indicator lamps, and then we've got the headlamps, which have options. So you can have them clear lenses, or you can have them with the covers on with the downward pointing light blinkers on. I've got to be honest, I think they look so much more World War II with the blinkers on than as just lamps. But I think that they're not saying it here in the instructions, but when we get to the paint options, I think there's different lamps on there, but it's another builder's option, really. Right, and that is it. 21 steps. I've got to be honest, there is nothing there that makes me think, oh, I'm glad they've made that a skill level 3. Have they made it a 3 just it's got photo etching? Not sure. It's not a high part count, and it doesn't look a difficult build. So, yeah. Okay, interesting. Right, let's get to our paint schemes. So we've got 2 paint schemes, and I got to say, I've always liked this paint scheme. And I think they had this option on the ambulance as well. I can't remember. So you might be able to put them in convoy, which would be cool, wouldn't it? So we've already read out what it is. Tobruk, Western Desert, August 41. They're calling out 4 colours, which is linen, beige green, and slate grey. And then the black, which, it's about time Humbrol got a tyre black, because they always default for their jet black for the tyres, and they don't quite look right when they're jet black, to be honest. But there you go. You've got a nice option there with those three greens. It looks like it should be an easy paint scheme, but I think the masking of that will be a little bit more tricky than it perhaps looks. But yeah, and then we've got some decals on the engine there, so not too many, and then some on the front and the rear of the cab. So, handful of decals. So there's nothing there that's particularly difficult. What actually was the photo etch part? Right, okay. So let's just show that. It could be. That's a good point. It could be that the paint scheme is what's making it a skill level 3. Yeah, I had not thought about that. The photo etch part was the identification plate that sits on the front mudguard there. Okay, and the other paint scheme is this. It's unusual. This evaluation unit rusher. 1944. So I guess some of these were issued to the Soviet Union under the Lend-Lease scheme. I'd be interested to know how many they paid for at the end, like those Hawker Hurricanes that were found in Ukraine recently. But yeah, it's all over dark earth with a matte black camouflage, which in itself is quite interesting and a bit different. And I guess that appeals to some people. I've got to say, I prefer the look of the other one. Also, you get more decals on the other one. There's more markings. But there you have it. That is the instructions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the first bag and we'll start having a look at the plastic, and I'm going to have another sip of tea. How's things on the chat, Daisy?
Good. Someone said that it would make good diorama material.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think these sort of general workhorse vehicles are always good in a diorama. Get yourself some of those Tamiya Desert SAS vehicles and you've got a nice little convoy going on. Right. Bear with me because it's slightly different when I do this live, because I can edit this out when I do it normally, and I can't edit it out. But you need to see that this is the first time I've looked at it, and that's why it's a first impression. So this is Sprue C, and it's got a clear marker in the middle, so it's easy to see, so you no need to tape it up. I'm just going to turn it that way around because the numbers are the way around. First thing I'll say is it's nicely laid out. There's lots of space between the parts. The numbers are nice and large and visible, so us slightly older modelers who are starting to lose their eyesight, I've got a good chance of finding things. So that's always good. And yeah, it all looks good. It's nice and crisp, as we'd expect, as it's a complete new tool. And I'm not seeing any flash. And I'm just scanning the parts for some sync. And that's a very good question, Gary. So the plastic feels like typical Academy plastic. So if you've built Academy kits before, you know what we mean. So yeah, it's a fairly decent hard plastic. It's not the Airfix new formula plastic. It's definitely the Academy plastic. But there's nothing wrong with Academy plastic, I don't think. So what we've got is a frame that's not a complete frame. We've got some parts that are exposed. So we've got the two seats there, and there's not much of way of detail on the cushioning. You can see a little bit. It's very subtle. There's some piping around the edge. Difficult for me to get you close because we're looking at this on a webcam, but I will do a separate video and take some close-up photographs, so look out for that. What I can say is I can't see any sync, other than possibly there might be a little bit in these chassis frames. I can just in the light see a little bit over there. So these are quite thick parts. There's definitely some on the inside. How noticeable it's going to be, not sure until you put some primer down. So we've got our tailgate there, which has got all the little tarpaulin hooks on, lots of fastener detail. That all looks nice. Same with the other end of the truck, and there's fastener detail both sides. But I'm just looking now. It might be possible to put that, to actually pose that open. Looking at it, it's completely flat on the inside. There's two little square pips that we saw in the instructions. You could whip those off, fill their location points, and then just use the hinge in the hinge mounting point, and that should work. So a little bit of butchery and you could make that work. Yeah, that'll be all right, actually. So just bear with me, Days. I'll get to you in a sec. Like I said, the grill is completely molded in, and you can't see through it at all. The mud flaps They've thinned the edges so they don't look too bad. I'll still be tempted to possibly replace those with some plastic card. And then there's no detail on the inside of the roof, just a load of ejector pins. So you'll have to deal with that. Might be worth a bit of research. Was there a roof liner? Possibly not, with it being a military vehicle when they were saving materials. Dashboard is nice, crisp. All the molding is nice and tight. Daisy? Well, that is another good point. They didn't have comfy trucks seats, these trucks. You're absolutely right. Yeah, well spotted, Daisy. Right, so then we've got the back of the cab, which has got the pressed steel markings on, which all look really nice, actually. Yeah, everything's really lovely and crisp. The handles are molded in, and they do look a bit blocky. I think separate handles would have been the way to go. Yeah, you might want to whip them off and replace them with a piece of wire or something. And there is actually a little bit of flash on the inside of the window frames on both of the doors in different places. It's just a bit beyond heavy seam. It is actually a bit of flash. I'm just looking on the inside now. Yeah, so again, all the handles are molded on. So they do look, they don't look too bad actually. And under paint with the doors shut, yeah, you probably get away with it. Looks like we've got a couple of nasty ejector pin marks there though as well, and some sink.
I missed that one. Slide molded.
No, I don't see any evidence of anything being slide molded. The telltale sign, if you've got something slide molded, is that rather than having the round frame on the sprue, you get a half round and you get a flat where the tool has come in. So no, it's not on the end because they've slide molded them. It's just where they put them, to be honest. I doubt there's anything slide molded in this kit. But yeah, I'm also thinking that you might want to go in with a scriber and just deepen the recesses between the frames for the back there. So there's a little bit of work to do on it, possibly, for those that want to. But as far as I can see, everything is nicely detailed and crisp, and other than a bit of seam cleanup, and the seam's not heavy at all other than on those door window frames. It would build out of the box quite well. So if you're not willing to put the scratch build effort in, I think it's looking good. There's quite a few. I'm looking at the underside now. There's quite a few ejector pin marks in the cab, and unfortunately they're all recessed. So there is some work to be done there. So that's a shame. But that's probably the only location other than the roof we've already talked about where ejector pin marks are going to be visible. There is some on the inside of the chassis frame, but they will sand out. They're all raised. So that's not too bad. That's not too bad. Right. Let's get the next bag out. How's the chat doing, Days?
Good. I have honestly no idea what half of the words mean.
Daisy's struggling with modeller's terminology, she tells me. So I agree with you, Hobby Time. It is absolutely standard academy fare what we're seeing here. You know, if this was in an academy box, we wouldn't blink an eye. Right, so this is Sprue D. So what we've got is Sprue C, D, and E, which makes me wonder when we're going to see A and B and what will be on them, to be honest. So let's see, where have we got? We've got the tyres, and the first thing I'm looking at is the tread. And yeah, that looks okay. Some nice bolt detail there, and the hubs look nice and sharp. So yeah, I don't have any issues with the wheels, and the spare wheel where there's bolts missing. That it's actually, you can see through them. We've got holes in, so that's cool as well. Nice sharp detail on the leaf springs. Recesses are deep enough to hold a decent wash. Oh, I've just noticed my separate bonnet. Drive shaft. It's a little bit chunky on the joints, but to be honest, you're not going to see it. So give it a dark wash so you've got some nice shadow effect, and that'll be fine. There's a nice delicate clip there, which I think is a rifle clip, or double rifle clip, I should say. Yeah. There's no writing on the sidewalls of the tyres, so I have no doubt there'll be resin tyres on the market probably by lunchtime tomorrow, the speed they get these things out. But yeah, there is, it's a nice tyre in its own right, just no sidewall writing. Steering wheel, smooth both sides, so you've not got the little moulding for the fingers on, but not sure whether it did or not. Again, that's a research thing. You might be able to replace it with something. Rear drive shaft looks good, and then we've got these quite delicately moulded in ends for some of these boxes, which also have the straps on, and they're actually quite delicate, and some of them you can see some of the sprue gates have failed, so I'm just hoping that they're fully molded. They look like they are. They're all the same length, so I don't think there's a short shot in there. And then we've got the mudguard, which does have the bumper molded in, and that does have the tiniest amount of sink. I'm being really picky, but when there's nothing else to pull up, you have to be, don't you? So there's a little bit in there, but a gentle sand and that'll disappear. It's got nice bolt detail. Yeah, mud flaps at the back. They've actually done not a bad job because they've put quite a heavy chamfer on them, but I'd be whipping those off, those ends, and putting some plastic card in. It'll look so much better. Really, that would have been no sweat for them to put that on Photo-etch, but there you go. Engine sump there. It's got some bolt detail and what have you. A little basic maybe. And then we've got our caps for the lamps there. The lamps are really heavy, so when you put the glass in there, they're going to look a bit odd because they've got a really thick wall around the pin that locates in them. How thick is that? Let me just measure that. So they don't look anything like a normal lamp. That's it's nearly 2 millimeters thick, the wall, which means, you know, when you put the clear parts in, it's going to look a bit odd. So you're going to have to paint that silver and glue it onto that and what have you. So yeah, not good lamps if you want to use the clear parts, I don't think. Can't see anything else of note. There is detail, nice detail actually on the back of the wheel hubs, which, you know, you won't really see, but you've got all the fastener detail, so that's good. And there is nice texture on the pedals as well, and we've actually got a hollowed out exhaust. Now, I don't think that's slide molded, but it could be. It actually could be. Those on the end, we've got a row of stuff there. We've got the exhaust end, the pedals, some of the toolboxes, and the end of the exhaust silencer with a location hole in, and they actually could be slide molded. So I take that back. It may be that the tool's come in and has not used not used the sprue. Yeah. So you know, I'm correcting myself. I think they might be slide molded because it's all openings at the end. So yeah. doesn't look, I'm in two minds whether they are or not, but I think it's possible they could be. So that's basically most of the parts. Let's have a look at the bonnet now. And then we'll do the clear parts and the decals and what have you. So as we saw, it's molded in one piece. It's a nice molding in its own right. Yeah, you've got the grill on there, and you've got the little latches to unlock it. Yeah, all looks good. That right. Let's do clear parts next. How's the chat looking, Days?
Good. People are theorising it looks like the ambulance kit.
It does a little bit.
Truck back on
It does look a bit reminiscent, but it's I don't know whether this is an Austin truck or not, to be honest. But yeah. Right, clear parts. Well, my first observation is they are beautifully crystal clear. My second observation is there's some clear parts here that we are absolutely not using. So we know there's some different variants coming, because these two big square windows we are not using at all. Yeah, it almost looks yeah, I don't know, odd one. That it almost looks like the ambulance windows, doesn't it? The K2 with them being square. I wonder if they tooled them up at the same time and did some cost savings. Interesting thought, isn't it? But these are the windscreens that we're using in this, and the molding of the windscreen wiper is very fine, actually. It'll be a right pain to paint. I'm going to be honest. That is that's going to be fun. And then we've got the windows that go in the doors. So yeah, lovely and clear, zero distortion, almost zero distortion, just on the curves is a little bit, but yeah, you're not going to have any problems with that. And then you've got this one, which is the rear cab window, which again, zero distortion. The actual glass headlamps though are a little bit foggy. They're quite thick, and then they've got this thick boss on the back that goes into the headlamp plastic back of it, and yeah, there's no texturing on it. Somehow they just don't look right. Don't know why, but that's definitely confirmed. I won't be doing the clear headlamp part. Right, that's the plastic parts done. Are they all still with me? They've not nodded off. Yeah, okay, good. Right, let's have a look at the decals.
Apparently it's the same clear sprue as the ambulance.
It is the same clear sprue, right? It looked like it was, but I didn't want to say it was. But what I will do when I do my, I'll redo the first impressions and take some good close-up photographs. What I'll do is I'll get the Austin Katie down and we'll compare it and see whether they've done that. But I think that's possibly what they've done, is they've tooled it at the same time. In which case, why is it taking them so long to get it to us? Anyway, right, decals. They are lovely spaced out decals. Then the color saturation is great. The register is spot on. They're a bit chunky. Yeah, they're sort of Tamiya-esque, but I think Academy decals tend to be. I hadn't noticed them on the paint instructions, but there is some air pressure markers for the mud guards as well. But yeah, they look fairly good. Now, I've not got my magnifying glasses on, so I can't see how clear the dials are. They're not Cartograph. They're Academy's own decals. But yeah, they usually go down pretty well. So that's the decals. And then our Photo-etch, as we saw, is 2 parts to make 1 part. And it has the little Airfix logo stamped on it. But yeah, I mean, it's a nice touch, but I had another kit delivered today, which we'll be talking about on Saturday, an armored car, and that didn't have any photo etching. So the fact that we've got a little bit, yeah, is nice. Right, so let's get to summarizing, and then we're going to change the camera angle and we'll have a little bit of a chat and see what people thought. That's an interesting comment. I wasn't aware of that. But that can happen, can't it, sometimes? Right, let's get the box out. Does make me wonder, when Gecko keeps stealing the march, whether they get inside information somehow, because they're usually very guarded about what they're releasing. Anyway, there you have it. The Airfix 1:35 scale World War II British Army 30 CWT 4x2 general service truck. What are my first impressions? Okay, I think the subject matter is really useful for people that like building dioramas around North Africa, but it will have seen service in all sorts of places. I think the two paint schemes they give you are very different, and the Russian Proving Ground one is a bit left of field. That's taken me completely by surprise that we've got that one. We've only got two paint schemes, but we've got two very different paint schemes. Interestingly, when you look at the box art, the grille looks very much like the Gecko grille and not very much like the plastic grille that you get in the kit, which means I'm sure there will be aftermarket etch for this. And my recommendation would be, if you really want to build this, get it, sit on it, and wait for the aftermarket guys to catch up with it, because I've bought 3 different lots of aftermarket for the ambulance, and it's going to make such a difference. So I think it's the same approach with this. What you get in the kit, though, the plastic parts themselves, all lovely in terms of detail and molding. Construction is simple. The instruction manual is well laid out, intuitive, easy to follow. Other than the comment about the paint schemes making it a little bit more complex, the actual build of the kit itself isn't too bad. And I would say the build is probably a level 2, especially as it's a fairly low part count. But yeah, you've got lots and lots of potential with this, because you can put all sorts of stuff in the back of it, and what have you. The downsides of the kit, we don't have an engine. We can't open the engine bay up anyway. The hoops for the soft top back are all molded in place, so we haven't got the option of putting them up and making the model look a little bit more interesting and involved. So one way or another, we've got 1 or 2 limitations. I don't personally like the windscreen wipers being molded into the glass, although I do accept they're more to scale doing it that way. And it's a bit of a shame that some of the things like the handles on the door are not separate items. On this day and age, that could be done and made to look good, whereas molding them on as in a thick, chunky strip just detracts a little bit. So, if I was Peter Oxley, I'd be saying it was an 8 out of 10, but I don't score them. So you make your own mind up. But for me, what I'm thinking is it's a lovely kit. Glad I've got it. I've got a number of North African kits now, and I have some plans in my head for them. So I'm looking forward to building it, but I won't be building it soon. I'll be sitting on it and waiting to see what comes out, because that grille definitely needs replacing, I think. And I'm sure we can replace the mud guards and 1 or 2 other bits as well. And I personally will be scratch building the loops when I come to do it. But yeah, there you go. that's my thoughts. I'm interested in your thoughts. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change the camera angle so you can see me, and we'll have a look at what's going on in the chat and have a bit of a chat for a minute. Daisy, is there anything in the chat I should know about while I'm moving camera angles?
I don't believe so.
So, question, everyone, has Daisy done a decent job of making sure I didn't miss anything? Right. There we go. Sort of there, isn't it? Right. Okay. I think you can see me now. There you go. Someone said you did an amazing job, Daisy. Right, let's get so it doesn't look like I'm listing. I have flexible legs on the tripod of my webcam. There we go. Is that right? Yeah, that'll do. Right. So, what do people think of that Airfix kit? Any good? What's people's thoughts? So, there's one thought. Looks like a great kit. I agree. I think it's a nice, simple build. It's not going to be too complex, but in some places you're gonna miss the fact that the part count's a bit low. But looks good. My ankle's bruised. Right. Okay. No, I don't have bruised ankles. She only gently tapped my leg once. Yeah, she's much wiser than that. She's much wiser than that. Yes, Craig, she has definitely earned a few more journeys. She's just finished college, so she's on her summer holidays now. So she's busy trying to do as little as possible. In fact, she got up for her breakfast at 11:30 this morning. So the trouble is, I'm working from home most days, so I know. Listen, I think the Airfix kit is great. Now, if any of you don't catch my table talk on a Saturday, do so this week, because that's not the only new kit I got this week. So I had a delivery today with a really, really nice Copper State Models armored car and a really, really nice 1:48 scale Copper State Models aircraft. So we'll be reviewing those soon as well. I've got to say, I've been taken by surprise that we've got the general service truck now. Because it had been in the Airfix magazine this month, I thought we were going to get the little armored car, British armored car first. I would have bet money on it. So it took me by surprise when I got the call from Airfix yesterday to say it's on its way. But I agree with you, James. That's a really good point. I think Airfix are trying to box clever and find a market that's still their traditional pocket money kids market, but also appeals to the more experienced modeler. So there's something there for everyone. If you just want to build it out of the box, it's going to look great. If you want to have a mess around with it and upgrade it, it's going to look great, and you've got something to play with. So yeah, I just wonder if the skill level 3 is going to scare one or two younger builders off. Don't know. But that's yeah, I think it's worth adding to the stash, definitely. If you enjoyed building the ambulance, or you got the ambulance kit, it'll go nicely with that as well. And like I say, there's some nice Tamiya stuff you can put with that. The Chevys, the long range desert group stuff. You can get a nice little diorama together, and of course, there's lots of German armored cars and tanks and stuff from the North Africa campaign that would go nicely with. So yeah, all good. Right, I'm just going to scroll back up and see if there's anything I missed. And if not, we're getting on to 10 o'clock now. So we've been on for nearly an hour. So we're probably done. Right. Okay. So what I will do is I will refilm this. You'll be able to come back to this particular video. But I will refilm this and we can get some nice close-up photographs of those parts so you can see the detail. And if you're sort of umming and ahhing about the kit, then yeah, you'll be able to make a decision with a little bit more knowledge as to what you're getting. So let's see what we got. The Gecko kit is much more complicated, lots of photo etch and 45 steps. Yeah, doesn't always necessarily mean that's going to end up being a better model, and it depends as a modeler what you're looking for from your model. Some people just like building and aren't too bothered how accurate it is. Other people really want the accuracy, and then there's a whole spectrum of us in between that. So I suspect that you'll probably find more people will lean towards the Gecko version, which is probably disappointing for Airfix, because if Airfix had been the first to the market, like they should have been with the ambulance, it would have sold in its bucket loads. But it is also 25% cheaper than the Gecko kit. So that might be a decision maker for some people, definitely, especially if you're putting them in as Christmas presents for kids and the like. So there you go. I also agree with you, James. The Russian scheme is interesting just because it is so very different and left of field, like I said. Don't think I'll do it, but yeah, definitely different. Okay, let's see. So on what's coming up on Saturday, we've got loads to talk about on that, because we've got the new additions, and we're also going to be talking about the fact that we've got 6,000 subscribers. So thank you very, very much. If you're a subscriber to the channel, it's massively appreciated. 6,000, bit of a landmark. So we're going to do something, and we'll talk about that on Saturday, and then I'll record a video to go out thereafter. But I'm not going to say anything more than that. But we're going to do a little something that I hope everyone can buy into, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, 6,000 subscribers. I think that was today I got that, or yesterday. I was at 6,001 when I last looked, anyway. And we'll have a look at how many views we've got, because I'm sure I'm at something like 750,000 views as well.
Let's hope 2 people don't unsubscribe.
You know what?
Plunge you back down into 5,000.
That happened when I got to 1,000 subscribers. In my naivety, I did a video. Yeah, 1,000 subscribers. By the time I recorded the video and put it out, 2 people had unsubscribed, and it was at 998. And the first comment was, "No, you're not." So I've learned from that lesson, and we'll give it a couple of days and make sure we're well in the 6,000 subscribers. But thank you very much for the 6K. Congrats. Yeah, it's it's you guys as much as anything. I enjoy doing this because I get lots of comments and feedback, and people are interested, and I just love doing it. So there you go. Daisy, would you like to just come on screen and say hello, goodbye?
Sure. Hello.
As my assistant, she did a brilliant job. Thank you very much, Daisy. And she did it for no pay. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to wrap it up for tonight. So everyone have a great evening. Enjoy your modeling, and I will see you very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.